the deadliest weapons of the ancient world. You are standing about 20 feet away from something that could kill you. It is bigger than you, stronger than you, and completely unaware that you're there. You can hear it moving through the grass, and for a few seconds, everything is perfectly still. You have one weapon in your hand, but calling it a weapon almost feels ridiculous. It's just a piece of wood with a sharpened end. No metal, no gunpowder, no complicated machine, just a pointed stick. And now you have a choice. You can step closer and risk getting killed, or you can walk away hungry. For most of human history, this was the deal. If you wanted meat, you had to get close enough for the animal to hurt you. If you wanted to fight another human, you had to get close enough for them to fight back. And if you wanted to attack a settlement, you had to somehow get through whatever was protecting it. Humans had a serious problem. Our bodies weren't built to solve any of this. We weren't the fastest animals. We weren't the strongest. We didn't have claws, fangs, thick hides, or natural weapons designed specifically for killing. So instead of changing our bodies, we started changing the rules. We began building weapons that could solve our weaknesses for us. And some of the deadliest weapons in the ancient world weren't enormous machines or beautifully crafted swords. Some were so simple you could make them with things lying around you. But each one solved a different problem, and every time humans solved one problem, they created a new possibility that would make the next weapon even more dangerous. The spear is probably the easiest place to start, because it looks almost too simple to have changed anything. It's just a long piece of wood with a point. But that point solved one of the biggest problems a human could have in a dangerous world: reach. Your arm can only reach so far. A spear makes your arm longer. Suddenly, the animal doesn't have to be close enough to bite you before you can hurt it. You can keep a little space between your body and the thing trying to kill you. And that tiny bit of distance changes everything. A predator's greatest advantage is often its ability to get close enough to use its natural weapons. A spear interrupts that advantage. It turns a weak animal into something capable of fighting from a safer position. But ancient spears weren't necessarily just random sticks that someone sharpened 5 minutes before a hunt. The wood mattered. The shape mattered. The balance mattered. A weapon that is too heavy in the wrong place behaves differently from one that has been carefully shaped and balanced. And once humans realized that the design of the weapon could make up for the limitations of the body holding it, something very important happened. Humans stopped asking, "How can I become stronger?" and started asking, "How can I make the weapon do more of the work?" That question led to one of the simplest but most important ideas in ancient technology: leverage. A spear is useful in your hand, but what if you could throw it? Now the weapon doesn't just extend your reach. It travels away from you. But your arm has limits. You can only generate so much speed and force with a normal throw. So humans developed tools such as the spear thrower, or Atlatl, which acted like an extension of the arm. Instead of relying only on the movement of your muscles, the tool helped multiply the movement. You didn't suddenly become stronger. You didn't grow bigger muscles overnight. You simply changed the mechanics of the throw. And that meant a human could launch a long projectile much farther and faster than a normal throw could manage. This is one of the most fascinating patterns in human history. Whenever nature gave us a physical limitation, we started looking for a mechanical way around it. We couldn't reach far enough, so we made something longer. We couldn't throw hard enough, so we created leverage. We couldn't overpower an animal, so we found a way to injure it without fighting it directly. But the spear thrower still had a weakness. You had to make a fairly obvious throwing motion. Your body moved. Your target could see that movement. And if you were hunting something fast and alert, being seen at the wrong moment could ruin everything. So humans needed a weapon that could store energy before the attack even began. That's where the bow becomes one of the most important inventions in ancient warfare and hunting. At first glance, a bow doesn't look very impressive. It's a curved piece of material, a string, and an arrow. But mechanically, it's doing something incredibly clever. When you pull the string backward, you bend the bow and store energy inside it. When you release the string, that stored energy is transferred into the arrow. Your muscles don't have to provide all the force at the exact moment of the attack. The weapon stores it for you and releases it almost instantly. And suddenly, The human body matters a little less. You don't need to run toward your target. You don't need to stand beside it. You can stay back. You can hide. You can crouch behind cover. You can fire and create even more distance between yourself and whatever you're trying to kill. That is the real power of the bow. It's not just that an arrow can travel far. It's that the person using it can remain relatively safe while the weapon does the dangerous part. And there's another advantage that's easy to overlook. A spear is large and awkward to carry in large numbers. Arrows are small. You can carry many of them. One person can have multiple attempts without having to physically retrieve a giant weapon after every shot. Suddenly, hunting becomes less about one perfect attack and more about giving yourself repeated chances. But the bow creates a new problem. An arrow is small, and a small projectile has to deliver enough damage to bring down a large animal. Simply hitting something isn't always enough. The weapon has to keep doing damage after impact. That is where the design of the projectile becomes just as important as the weapon launching it. A sharp point can penetrate. Different shapes can produce different wounds. Barbs can make removal more difficult. Small stone blades can create multiple cutting edges. And eventually, humans discovered something even more disturbing. The weapon didn't necessarily have to kill the target immediately. It only had to start the process. An injured animal might run away, but the hunter could follow its tracks. Blood could reveal where it had gone. The animal could become weaker over time. Its body was now fighting the injury even after the weapon was gone. And that changes the entire equation. You don't necessarily have to overpower something that is much stronger than you. You can hurt it, stay alive, follow it, and let time do some of the work. It's almost like turning the animal's own body against itself. The weapon doesn't have to win instantly. It only has to create a problem the target can't escape. And humans eventually pushed this idea even further with poison. Now the weapon didn't just create physical damage. It could introduce another deadly process into the body. A poisoned projectile could hit, disappear, and leave its effect behind. The hunter could be far away while the real danger continued inside the animal. Think about how strange that is. Humans didn't become powerful enough to kill something enormous with their bare hands. They didn't suddenly grow claws or fangs. They found a way to make the weapon continue working after the human had already left. That is a completely different kind of power. And once humans understood that a weapon could keep causing damage after the moment of impact, the possibilities became enormous. The weapon was no longer just the object in your hand. It became a system: delivery, distance, penetration, injury, tracking, and time. The physical object was only the beginning. But eventually, the most dangerous targets weren't animals. They were other humans. And that's where ancient weapons become much darker. An animal usually wants to escape you. Another human can understand exactly what you're trying to do. They can prepare. They can build their own weapons. They can wear protection. They can hide behind shields. They can build walls. And now a new arms race begins. A stronger weapon encourages better armor. Better armor encourages stronger projectiles. Stronger projectiles encourage better defenses. Humans weren't just inventing weapons anymore. They were inventing weapons specifically to defeat the weapons that other humans had already invented. Swords became symbols of close combat because they gave a trained fighter a powerful tool within reach of an opponent. Axes could deliver enormous force. The crossbow is fascinating for exactly this reason. A traditional bow requires the user to hold the string under tension while aiming. A crossbow can hold that tension mechanically. The weapon stores the energy for you. You load it, aim it, and release it with a mechanism. That means the weapon itself is doing more of the work. And that is a major pattern in the history of weapons. The more technology improves, the less the natural limitations of the human body matter. You don't need to be incredibly strong if the weapon stores the energy. You don't need to be incredibly fast if the weapon gives you reach. You don't need to be physically powerful if the weapon multiplies your force. Humans kept finding ways to transfer the difficult parts of the job from the body to the machine. But there was still one place where even the most powerful handheld weapon struggled: a wall. Imagine you're inside an ancient city. The walls around you are enormous. They're designed to keep an attacking army outside. From the top, you can see soldiers gathered below, but you know they can't simply walk through the stone. For a moment, the wall feels like complete safety. Then you hear a strange sound. Something massive is moving through the air. A moment later, a huge stone crashes into the structure. Then another. Suddenly, the wall that was supposed to protect you has become the thing being attacked. This is what siege technology changed. Catapults and other siege engines allowed armies to attack targets that ordinary weapons couldn't reach. The problem was no longer, how do I kill the person standing in front of me? It became, how do I destroy the place where hundreds or thousands of people are hiding? That's an enormous escalation. And now we can finally ask the question the entire story has been building toward. What was actually the deadliest weapon of the ancient world? You might immediately think of a sword. Maybe a massive spear. Maybe a chariot racing across a battlefield. Maybe a huge siege engine capable of throwing stones at a city. But there's a problem with that question. What does deadliest actually mean? Is it the weapon that killed the most people? The weapon that was hardest to survive? The weapon that changed warfare the most? Or the weapon that gave the person using it the biggest advantage? Because if you judge weapons by appearance, you might pick the wrong one. A sword looks deadly because it's visibly dangerous. A massive siege machine looks deadly because it's enormous. But some of the most important weapons in human history were powerful precisely because they didn't look impressive. They changed the relationship between the person attacking and the person being attacked. And that's why the bow deserves another look. Its greatest invention isn't simply the arrow. It's the separation it creates. The person making the decision can stand far away from the person experiencing the consequence. The spear creates some distance. The bow creates much more. The crossbow makes the weapon itself do more of the work. Siege engines push that distance even farther. And once you recognize that pattern, the history of weapons starts looking completely different. Humans weren't simply trying to make sharper blades. They were repeatedly trying to solve one basic problem. How can I hurt something without allowing it to hurt me? The spear answered that question with reach. The thrown spear answered it with distance. The bow answered it with stored energy and concealment. Poison answered it by allowing the weapon's effect to continue after the attacker had left. The crossbow answered it by transferring more of the physical work into a mechanism. Siege weapons answered it by allowing humans to attack targets they couldn't physically reach. Different weapons, different cultures, different centuries, but underneath all of them was the same idea. Distance. And that may be the real reason humans became so dangerous. We didn't become the strongest predator on Earth by changing our bodies into something terrifying. We became dangerous by making sure our bodies didn't have to do all the work. We extended the arm. We multiplied the throw. We stored the energy. We sharpened the point. We added poison. We built machines. And every time we pushed danger farther away from ourselves, we made our physical weaknesses matter a little less. The first hunter holding a sharpened stick probably had no idea where this idea would lead. To him, the weapon was simply a way to survive another day. But that simple decision created a pattern humans would repeat for thousands of years. Make the weapon reach farther. Make it hit harder. Make it easier to use. Make it harder to defend against. And most importantly, make sure the person holding it doesn't have to get close. That's why the deadliest weapon of the ancient world may not have been the sword, the spear, the bow, or the catapult. It was the idea behind all of them. You don't have to be stronger than your enemy if you can change the distance between you. And once humans discovered that, we never stopped pushing that distance farther.